All right, I'm back, folks. Sorry about that. So, really quick, going to talk about the market, some of the names I'm looking at. It's going to be really quick. Not much to talk about this morning outside of we have PC data at the end of the week, NVDA earnings tomorrow after the close should be exciting. But yesterday was like I would call it an annoying day. It's just a chop a little bit to the downside. We bounced, considering where we were at the start of August. You have to think there at some point there's going to be some pull. Now the question, and there's always these stories, the narratives that come out. People start comparing this move to another move where we're at the start of a rate cut cycle, and every time there's a rate cut cycle starts, markets fall. Have 2008. So everybody will have these kind of analogies, and I think what's probably going to start hitting folks, or it's because people are going to start using it as a possible narrative for the market right now, is the potential for a double top here. And you look, we hit highs at July 16th. Here we are, stone throw away from all-time highs again on the SPY. The Dow hit the highs, all-time highs yesterday before pulling back after the morning highs. And now start looking at some of these charts and you say, wow, this could be the potential for a double top, and that could portend a big pullback that's coming in. We have September, October, historically weak time frames. So we'll have to see how everything all plays out. You start looking, and the video is going to be key tomorrow. So I mean, everybody's looking at that to see. It's going to be a huge beat, a huge raise. If anything outside of that, the market will probably fall, and the video will get hammered. If it's a monster beat, monster raise, then maybe that stock trades up 6, 8, 10%. Have to think that they're going to do well, and people are going to want to hear about their Blackwell chip. Is that any the backlog on it, any delays, and any color around that is probably going to move the stock quite a bit. Not a name I'm going to trade. I'll talk about in a second, but I'd like DELL as kind of a sympathy move, and then DELL reports earnings on Thursday. But hopefully, if you hear me do my rants, I love consolidation, right? Because when the markets go too far too fast, then we have these pulls that are not good, right? Especially when it calls. But if we consolidate some little pullbacks, quarter percent here and there, some chop, churn out some of those sellers, and then that is healthy for the next leg to the upside. So days like yesterday are frustrating, but in the long run, I think that it's healthy for the market to continue to head to the upside. But again, the concern, or the thing that I think most people are going to look at, especially if the market stays almost flatlined here for the next couple sessions, they'll say, well, it's hitting the ceiling, double top, and then we're going to have another 8 to 10% to the downside. Another, I said the good sign here, yesterday's pullback, and Nasdaq and the S&P closed in red. Nasdaq was down from 1% for most of the session, but then the small caps were actually outperforming. And I'm a broken record over and over again, but that's really what I want to see. Even if the S&P chops for the next couple sessions, I want to see that the small caps get back to where it hit after the June CPI data. Nice break, 215, still that big support resistance line. Don't want to see it get down there, but if it does, I want to see that hold and go from there. So some of the individual names. At first, I'll talk about Super Micro. So, if you know the whole story about Nikola, Nikola, I don't know why I always think that when I think of the ticker, but back when I was negative that name, had puts, thought Trevor Milton was this big, showboating, arrogant person who, you can read it for here. I'm not here to talk bad about anybody. That's not, but I kind of sniffed it out way before anybody else did. And then it looks like one of the insiders on Nikola, someone, maybe a former employee, someone who's in the cahoots, gave some of the information to Hindenburg Research. Hindenburg Research hit them with that short piece in September, and the rest is ancient history. Trevor Milton's convicted of fraud and all that stuff. But I knew most. I didn't have all the insider information, so the only information I had was what I could pull from the internet and from filings and from some of his webcast, things like that, right? So Hindenburg does great job taking all the information and putting it together into a concise report that usually paints the picture of a story on a company and a stock that is going to have substantial downside and substantial downside potential. But they've done a couple over the last couple months and over the last year or so where it's almost like I'm scratching my head. And you take a look at Super Micro, they got delisted back in like 2017. Like there's things that they put in their report that are already out there. The company got fined $200-something million and then relisted. There's some shady shenanigan deals that the company has done with some unnamed parties, which should be named in their filings. And one of the parties has a server when the picture is identical to the one that Supermicro touts on their presentations. And so, and then you look at them like the short piece doesn't really paint the picture of Supermicro of going to, going down 35%. It just puts the possibility that maybe there's some question marks in regards to their accounting and some irregularities, whatever you want to call it. And the SEC may come knocking, ask for some documents. The stock might fall a little bit more. Then they get fined, whatever it is, $100 million. They clear it all up, and then the stock just keeps going. So I look at, I'm not going to trade Supermicro, but it was like one of those reports where I'm like, they're kind of stretching the spectrum of their short pieces, right? To me, it's like a reach, and to me, it's like they said they're researching this for 3 months, and you start looking at stock price in 3 months. It's almost like, I hate it. Citron Research has done this. Spruce Point Capital. It's like they find a stock that's hit multiple highs and looks overvalued, had a huge run, and then they build their bear case after the fact, right? And then they get the puts and they have a position of clout where people are probably going to sell the stock just because they put a piece out without even reading it, right? Hopefully that's not the case. One of the few short folks that I like is Hindenburg, so we'll see. But the more I read it, the more I'm like, this is kind of like it's a top level stuff where even if a lot of the accusations and research they've done is true, does it is I mean stock's already 40% off its highs. So is that you know, is that going to make it go down into the 400s? I don't think so. And even if the SEC comes out with some kind of subpoena or whatever it is, and for documents or what have you, I don't think it drops. Anyway, so that's a rant for us. Unfortunately, what happens, that report comes out and then it pulled down all the other names in that AI space, including DELL. But DELL's recovered. I added those strikes yesterday morning. I was looking at the weeklies, and then I thought maybe probably better to give me some time. Also, make sure I have enough premium there so that if the stock does drop, the premiums don't just get destroyed. Don't be surprised if I add some strikes into the end of the day if the market holds its ground. Some weeklies, and then both of those strikes, the September's and the weeklies, I'll look to cover some of the costs into NVIDIA earnings tomorrow after the close, and then possibly take some or all of it off before DELL earnings. Although, I've said this already, I think DELL's going to report a monster beat and raise. They're also going to hopefully address that server margin concerns, right? That's the big deal with why one of the main reasons why the stock sold off after its earnings. It posted a strong beat and raise. They just said pretty much said, they didn't say it, but an analyst asked a question, doing the math, it looks like you have zero margins, and they didn't really dispel that. So hopefully they do that in the earnings call. If they do, I think it trades north of 130. But at the same token, if they don't, maybe it's flat. It stays flat, trades 115, 120. The premiums will get crushed. I don't want to be in a spot where I lose the position. So I'll look to close some if I can get out to cover cost, or all if I can't do that. So that's DELL. I don't know why I didn't have the chart here, but you take a look since I had the August week, then I had the August 30s, and I sold all those for some nice profits. And then going into last week, the stock has traded between that 108, 112 handle, and it's still doing it again today. I always talk about this tug of war when you have the battle of the bulls and the bears, people trying to come in to buy, right? And they think it's going higher, and then you have folks taking profits or shorts or what have you. And eventually, when you have a very tight trading range on a high volume stock that's divisive, at some point, one of those sides are going to win. Of course, I'm biased to the upside on DELL. So I think once that tug of war breaks, whether it's today, hopefully it's before the close tomorrow, I think it's to the upside. Maybe it gets up to 124 earnings. That would be the ideal scenario. Clear Secure still have the potential bull flag setting up here near multi-year highs now, 29.30. I think it hit 29. What did it hit yesterday? 29.10, 29.12. No, it hit 29.34. All right, so we got about 11 cents trading here at 29.22 right now. Great start. Once it breaks 30, I think it's off to the races. At least I say off to the races. 31.32 is that bull flag breakout, maybe just a little bit higher. So I'll look to lock some of my September strikes in. I might look for some more. I was looking at the watch list. If you look at a watch list this morning, I was thinking maybe 31, 32 strikes. So that's Clear Secure. And then Chewy. Chewy reports earnings tomorrow before the open. And Chewy was a great name back at the end of May and June. Had some really nice multi-baggers on that one. Of course, in hindsight, I still have a couple January strikes left, which in hindsight, with all the hype and then what went on with Roaring Kitty, I probably should have closed them all out, but you just never know. And who knows? I don't think he's done by any means in regards to his Chewy. I think his Chewy investment probably is more something to hold as opposed to what happened with GameStop, right? There's a lot more levers and uh, paths that Chewy can take for it to go substantially higher in the coming months and maybe even in the coming years. You also have, GameStop has that the money they raised. I think it's over $3 billion. Are they going to do a stake in Chewy? So I think there's still a lot of things that and catalysts that can go on with Chewy that maybe trades. If strong beat and raise before the open tomorrow, I think it trades north of 30. And the thing is, it also has a decent short interest. So if it holds those gains, I think that just bodes well for more upside. So don't be surprised if I add some spec calls here. Sitting here at $25 right now, 25.50. Uh, let's see. I didn't even pull up what the because I almost want to do the September's, but you look at the 30 strikes, they're 61 by 64, and even with the stock down over 1%, some of the calls are holding on to their premium. So we'll have to see how that plays out. So that's Chewy. The updated short interest data came out after the close yesterday, and you look at a name like VKTX. 17.7 million shares are short. That's up from 16.8. So nearly, 800,000 shares, more shares were sold short. And the stock traded between 60, 55 and 60, somewhere in there. So you're talking another, 50, $60 million shares sold short. That's just insanity. It's either folks playing with fire, or they know the shorts know more than the longs here, because to me it's like it's staggering. And then you can see it in the chart every time VKTX looks like it's going to break out. It comes under pressure, and it's I think a substantial amount of that is because the shorts are coming in and pressuring it. So we'll have to see. I think 70 is that big spot. Once VKTX gets over 70, uh, could be a good sign. I think that's where kind of the shorts throwing the towels, but it's sitting here at $60. Some of it's on this news. I guess uh, uh, I'm trying to Zeppound and what's their other one? uh, Giorno, or is it Wachovia? Either way, they're coming out with a less expensive form of Zeppound. I didn't read all the information, but you can see LLY going up. It seems like every other day there's news on LLY, whether it's around their drugs, the drug supply, what other ailments or afflictions these GLP-1 drugs solve or cure. And it's just, again, surprising to me that VKTX's drug is superior to anything out on the market right now with less adverse effects. And folks, for some reason, think it's going substantially lower and keep adding to their shorts. So I always look at it, and I look at turns today. Turn was good yesterday. Well, closed nice on Friday. Decent day yesterday. Now it's going down to lows here, I guess, in tandem with VKTX on this LLY news. But if you look at people look at the addressable market for the GLP-1 drugs, and if there's a lower cost option out there, then you start looking at pricing power and things like that. So maybe that's some of the reason why these names are going. But you look at VKTX and Turn especially, it's so far out to where they could potentially be in market. It's easy for these folks to come in and I wouldn't say manipulate, but to pressure the stock, because what other catalyst, excuse me, is going to be out there for these names until they get a FDA approval. And with VKTX, you would think some of the catalysts should have been from their earnings when they announced that the FDA allowed them to just leapfrog into phase 3. But that kind of enthusiasm weighed off, and here it is back down at $60. Just frustrating. But that's about it. I'll be back on audio in a couple hours. I might look for Chewy. I might look for some more DELL inexpensive weekly spec calls. I look at Redfin today. I'm not really going to talk too much about Redfin, but closed nice little spike around 1, 2 o'clock, and yesterday was hitting right around where it's trading right now, 1120s, and then just off to the races, closed right near highs. Uh, I think it trades 14, $15 plus in the coming weeks. You have tailwinds, the tailwinds of a rate cut, the start of a rate cut cycle for the Fed. Then you have, the home sales data last Friday was just remarkable, and I think the housing side of or the narrative for the markets for the housing side is going to just continue to bode well for Redfin. I'm trying to think. I think that's about it, folks. I'll be back on audio later. Let's have a great day. Rock and roll.